Princess Mariam was annoyed.
I don't want to weave.
She complained.
Can't I just have my normal lessons like math, writing, and music?
Weaving's an important skill for a princess,
said Queen Aisha.
Your mother's right,
said King Jamal.
Tomorrow your tutor will teach you weaving.
If I had a choice, I would have my head in a book or play my oud,
said Mariam. That night, Mariam had an idea. She sat down at her desk and started writing a story. Farida, the kind tutor, arrived the next day ready to teach Mariam. She was carrying books, a loom, and a basket of wool.
Math and writing first,
said Farida. Mariam finished her normal work very fast.
Now it's time for weaving,
said Farida.
Before we start,
Mariam said,
I want to tell you a story.
A story?
asked Farida.
It's really amazing. If I were you, I would want to listen,
Mariam said. Mariam started reading her tale of heroes and villains.
Once upon a time, brave Haroun left home to rescue his father, who was taken in the middle of the night by a cruel kidnapper.
Mariam's story about Haroun's adventures went on until it was the end of the lesson. There was no time for weaving.
We'll start tomorrow,
said Farida. That night, Mariam wrote for hours. The plot became more complicated and more exciting. The next day, after their normal lessons, Farida announced,
Today we must weave.
But perhaps more of the story first,
said Mariam.
As you wish, but please keep it short,
said Farida. Mariam continued her tale.
Haroun reached the villain's cave high in the mountains. There were fierce gray wolves with terrifyingly sharp teeth all around it. You don't frighten me, Haroun shouted.
Mariam's voice was as loud as a lion's roar. Again, the time passed in the blink of an eye.
You tell an extremely thrilling tale,
Farida said excitedly. The next day came, and with it, more of Mariam's story.
Haroun and the kidnapper both drew their swords. I have you now, said Haroun. Never, shouted the villain. Shoo, 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 shoo. With loud cries and a clash of metal, they began to fight.
Again, Mariam's lesson passed in a flash. The same thing happened the next day, and the next, and the next. A month went by, and no wool touched Mariam's hands.
In the end, Haroun beat the kidnapper. With the villain tied up, Haroun and his father headed home, and they lived happily ever after.
Farida clapped her hands.
What a wonderful story! And it has a fine moral. You're a really great storyteller.
Just then, the king and queen appeared out of the shadows.
Mother! Father!
Gasped Mariam.
So, this is your weaving, daughter?
Said the king.
Not a rug, but a story?
Mariam blushed and her cheeks warmed.
Yes, Father. I use words instead of wool.
The king smiled.
Well, I think your story is wonderful.
and very exciting.
agreed the Queen, clapping her hands.
If I were you, I would be extremely proud,
said the King.
And if I wrote a story like that, I would want to put it in a book,
said the Queen. Mariam agreed.
Now that is a good idea.